super informal video today, just a great little book haul. And I may actually split this up into two videos because this is an awful lot of books. It's mostly nonfiction, but this one right here, it ties into one of my favorite novels of all time. And I'm not going to do the YouTube thing, like making you wait until the end of the video to like ramp up my watch time. I'll just tell you what the novel is right now. It's The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. It's 1844 classic French adventure novel about wrongful imprisonment and revenge, and it's truly spectacular. Like I love this book to death, and it's listen, it's 1,200 pages. I read it like a year ago. You'd think that like you spend so much time with that book. It took me maybe a month and a half to read it, in and among other books. You spend so much time with a book, and you finally finish it. You think like you're gonna leave it alone for maybe a couple of years and then come back to it. But like I cannot wait. I literally cannot wait to read this again. This one right here is like the you know what? Yeah. No, I won't do the YouTube thing. I'll make this the first book. It's called The Black Count, and it's basically the story of Alexander Dumas' father and his father's father, which is basically it's like the true story of the Count of Monte Cristo. It's the real Count of Monte Cristo. The novel was based on true events and like that happened to Dumas' father. I haven't started this one yet, but I cannot wait to get started. I probably will finish this before I reread Count of Monte Cristo, and I think on my second reading of the Count, it'll just inform that second reading so much. Like I think I'll get even more out of it, knowing like what the true like real story was behind it. So The Black Count by Tom Rees. And this next book, I have about 20 pages left. I'm reading it right now. It's called The Man Who Loved Books Too Much by Alison Hoover Bartlett. And it's a true story. It's about a book thief. This guy named John Gilkey. Basically, I mean, the story basically runs up these like credit card scams to cheat or like steal rare books from bookstores all over San Francisco and California and places like that. And it's about his basically his obsession with stealing these rare books and the book collectors that were trying to track him down. And it's this whole cool story, and like she gets sort of involved in it too. Like she goes to meet this Gilkey guy and some of the dealers, and sort of has to tread that line between the both of them. Sort of like whose side is she? Like the dealers are thinking that she's spending too much time with this book thief, and then like the book thief doesn't really open up to her until a little bit later because she's like he's obviously like she's this woman who works for this magazine. Like he doesn't know that she's not gonna turn him right back into the police, right? So anyway, I love this book. It's really cool. The Man Who Loved Books Too Much, and I guess I will have to change the title of my own autobiography to something else because Man Who Loved Books Too Much is already taken. Okay, so these next two are gonna have me put on some sort of watch list for sure. But these ones were like so good. Two of my favorite books so far this year. I'm recording this on like March 23rd. I've read like 24 books so far this year, 25, and these are like top, among the top, like I'd say top 10. Anyway, so no stalling. Winning, Jesus, winning through intimidation. I know, I know. It's not like the kind of book that you'd want to be seen like reading in public. Like you're just like walking by this guy reading a book called Winning Through Intimidation. But it's like I was gonna say it's not like that at all. No, it's exactly what it sounds like. But it's more. It's almost like how like the 48 Laws of Power is can be used as both offense and defense. This is kind of the same way. And this guy Robert Ringer, and he's a real estate broker, or at least he was. I think he still is. I'm pretty sure he's still alive. And but it came out in like 1973, and the genesis of this book basically was that he kept on getting cheated out of his real estate commissions by these unscrupulous buyers and sellers, and they kept stealing his chips, as he puts it in the book. And so he had to develop this sort of this sort of like anti-intimidation philosophy and a whole bunch of sort of theories to sort of back it up and sort of like inform his business practices going forward, like how to prevent himself from getting scammed by these buyers and sellers and actually retain some of the profits that he was entitled to by doing this work. And apparently, um, I've okay, so I've read like 1,200 books in the last 10 years. I've counted at like 1,270. So like I know the names of tons of books, like thousands of books, thousands more than I've read personally. I have never before this year, I had never heard of this book, even though it's like a classic from 1973, and apparently it's one of the one of the top 15 best-selling motivational books of all time. And it wasn't until this year that I'd heard of it. So it's really good. I highly recommend it if you're into that. Then the next watch list worthy book is it's a business book, I swear. It's called How to Start a Cult by Jody Rainsford. And it's more, I mean, okay, so it's completely about building a strong, connected brand, you know, through your followers and, you know, subscribers like you after you press the damn button and join my cult, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But what he's done with this book is actually really cool. So he's taken these sort of psychological principles behind, you know, these like weird, you know, like these malevolent cults, basically, like the evil ones, like the lemonade chugging ones, and basically applied them to business and growing a following and, you know, devoted followers and supporters of your brand, and most importantly, buyers. You know, people who feel connected to you, want to do business with you, and not only that, but to spread your brand message without being paid to do so. And like, how do you do that? You develop, you know, a strong sense of belonging by actually, spoiler alert, you know, giving a shit about the people who, you know, who are your customers and who are affiliated with you. And you treat them well. You make sure they feel like they belong, you know, like I do with every single person that, you know, leaves a comment or, you know, sends me a message or, you know, buys one of my anything. You know, it's that, like, I always have that in mind. You know, it's not like this cold, impersonal, transactional thing. It's like I'm actively building belonging among the you know, my cult members. I mean, subscribers. Anyway, it's really good. How to Start a Cult, Jody Rainsford. I flew through this book, and yeah, highly recommend. The next one, and I don't think I'll split this into two videos. You can handle it. There's not that many left. So the next book is called The Secret Life of Books by Tom Mole. And you can see by my bookmark, I'm you know, almost halfway there, maybe a quarter of the way through. And I read several books at the same time. What's great about this one is that he goes beyond the content, like what's actually inside the book, to sort of looking at the book itself, and, you know, how the format and structure of the book, you know, looks completely different from how it did even, you know, a few hundred years ago, and just like the technological changes, and but also how we relate to books and what they say about us and how they, you know, help us, you know, I mean, this sounds like super pretentious, but like, you know, construct a sense of self, type of thing. It sounds so stupid when I say that out loud, but, you know, it's true. And the book is about how that happens and why, how it develops, and like how people feel about books and how, you know, it changes them, it changes their lives, changes the world. And it's a lot less pretentious than that sentence that I just said. So, and actually, it's not pretentious at all. It's really just, it's like, it's written by a dude who obviously genuinely loves books. And as a guy who genuinely loves books, maybe a little too much, I'm really liking it. And speaking of bibliophiles, we got another one. He's one of us. His name's Alberto Manuel, and it's called The Library at Night. And he is the author of A History of Reading, which is one of my favorite books of all time. And it's like one of my absolutely favorite books about books. And whereas that book is more about like the history of reading, this one is about libraries, and sort of in the same way as Tom Mole's book was, you know, about books, like that same type of thing, but about libraries. So what they've meant to us, what they do, what they stand for. They spark the imagination, spark controversy, spark all these things, and it's like for a building that just houses a bunch of paper with words on it. The library is, you know, a pretty interesting place, and Alberto Manuel is one of the best people to talk about it. And there's so many like great books about libraries. I mention them all the time. I'm actually reading a book about libraries, just called The Library, and you'll notice, I mean, every book about libraries has the word library in the title, and there's not much variation in those titles. Like, how could there be? There's The Library by Stuart Kells, The Library by Andrew Pettigrew, and another author whose name escapes me at the moment. There's The Library Book by Susan Orlean, which is phenomenal, one of my favorite books of all time, and this one, so The Library at Night, Alberto Manuel. This next book was sent to me by the authors, and I am not in their target market for reasons which will become apparent in the next few moments. However, I mean, a thing like something you have to know about me is that I do not like. It's just not worth it for me to recommend a book that don't think people will like. I do not share, I don't talk about bad books. So even though like this book isn't directly for me, like I wouldn't, I wouldn't, pass this, like I wouldn't walk by this on a bookshelf and say, hey, that was written precisely for me. I still read it, I still went through it, and it's really, really good. It's helpful, it's relatable, practical, and actionable. The book is called Money Bitch by Nicole Overcamp and Sarah Blankenship. They are experts in the financial services industry. They have been for more than a decade, and they've written this really excellent book about like it's for like smart women, as they say, who want to own their financial future. And I mean, who doesn't want that? And like one thing I will hammer home to everyone all the time, like if you should like your next book should be like, I mean, if you're talking about nonfiction, like if you're wondering what to read, identify the next or current problem that you have in your life, and then find a book that will help you solve it and overcome that. And so, if you're, a woman who kind of feels kind of behind, financially, or like they're not really understanding some of these concepts that you really have to know in order to, be sure that you're going to be, like be able to provide for yourself and be okay, like stay above water, financially, and do okay, and not just do okay but thrive. And ideally you want to go to someone who has done this before, like they're like legit experts at this stuff, like they know something that you don't, and they've written about it in a book. And yeah, it's quite good. And I'll leave links to this book and every single book that I mentioned down in the video description. So just head down there, and there's a whole bunch of stuff down there, bookish related things that you might love. So this would be among them, and I recommend this one if you're in their target market. Absolutely recommend it. And now, switching gears like you wouldn't believe, we've got the ancient Roman poet. I know, Horace, and this collection of his poetry is called Odes, and it is like one of the foundational works in like the Western literary canon. Like it's like really excellent. And there's another book that's I loved. It's called The Order of Time by Carlo Rovelli, and it's a difficult book. I'm not gonna say it's not, but he's a physicist, and it's about the nature of time and how time works, and it's just a wild book. So it's like from a physics perspective, but he mentions like he has a different quote from Horace. For every chapter, and that's one of like he pops up everywhere, but that's one of the places where I've seen him most recently. And some of these quotes from Odes were just some of my favorite notes that I took from that book. And so, like, whenever possible, I like to sort of go to original sources. So I was reading all these fantastic quotes from Horace, so I just like bought Odes, and I'm going through it. All right, so two more quick ones, and I'll start with the other one that was sent to me by the author, and this one's really, really good too. And it's in everyone is in the target market for this book. It's really well done. It's called The Comfort Zone by Kristen Butler, who is like she's a quite impressive businesswoman and just like person in general. And if you're not already following her on Instagram, I mean, 8 million people follow her page called Power of Positivity. This book is about how, like, instead of trying to escape your comfort zone, you can, which, hey, don't get me wrong, like, every once in a while, you definitely might want to, like, expand a little bit, but she kind of flips it around, saying the comfort zone is actually your source of strength and power. Like, this is where you feel the best. Like, I think of it as kind of like your wheelhouse, like that spot where you are, like, strongest and most in control, most capable. It's the things you already know how to do well and that you're the best at. And if you stay within that zone, a lot of achievement and success and fulfillment comes from the comfort zone. So it's kind of reframe of this thing where everyone's like always escape from it. Have you ever tried like returning to your comfort zone and see what you actually find there? So I was really impressed with this book as well, and her in general. So again, the links down in the description. It's called The Comfort Zone by Kristen Butler. All right, so the last book is this one, and it's one of the books that I'm most looking forward to reading, and it's coming up fast on my reading list. If I don't start it before the end of the month, it'll be like early April that I do. My goal, basically lifetime goal. Okay, so yearly goal is to read 200 books, and I'm at like 25, I think. Lifetime goal is 10,000 books, which is like 200 books a year for 50 years or something stupid like that. So I'm gonna get reading. But one of the things I've found most helpful to like achieve any goal is to surround yourself with people headed in the same direction. So I opened up a private coaching and mastermind community of my own on School, and it's called the Competitive Advantage. So I'm inside the community every single day, helping members, add $1,000 a month to their business, and read more books and remember what they read, learn more effectively, save time. My entire time management course called Time Mastery, that's moved inside Competitive Advantage. So when you become a member of the Competitive Advantage, we've got like 35 members right now, and you get access to all of my courses. So basically, over the next year, I will be teaching everything that I know, from reading 1,200 books and building a full-time creator business and becoming a fitness model, and all of those things, all of those goals that I've achieved. I'm basically helping every single member of the Competitive Advantage reach similar goals. And so you're more than welcome to join us. There are about 35 of us right there right now. And again, the link will be down in the description. So that is called The Competitive Advantage. And this book is a biography of one of my biggest intellectual influences. He is Jiddu Krishnamurti, and it's just called a biography. And I remember where I was when I first read a book of his called The Revolution from Within. And I remember just being struck by it, how, like, here was a guy, he was set up basically by this religious organization that, they selected him to be like their leader, basically like a cult. And so instead of assuming leadership of this cult, basically, they wanted to call him like the world teacher, with like capital W, capital T. And dude was having none of that. And basically on the day when he was supposed to assume leadership of this organization, he basically got up and he said, don't follow me, don't follow anyone, listen to yourself, and like, don't like assume that people you're talking to know what they're talking about. Like, take nothing for granted. Ask questions repeatedly, and ask questions again and again. Question everything, and like, just like, don't follow anyone. The speech was called "Truth is a Pathless Land," and basically after that speech, like, he dissolved the entire organization and spent the rest of his life, teaching in small groups all over the world. And he's one of my biggest intellectual influences. The book that I remember reading, The Revolution from Within, phenomenal book. There's so many others. I've probably read, a dozen books by Krishnamurti, and like, he's never let me down once. So I can't wait to read his biography. I think this is like one of the only ones that I could find. I think any other biographies that I found like weren't like complete, or like little skimpy things. Like, this is like an actual real like biography of the guy, from like someone who knew him and spent a lot of time with him. So I cannot wait to read this. But as you can see, I've got a ton of reading to do, so I'm going to cut this video short. I would, however, like to encourage you to come back to the channel for more videos, and maybe if you're up for it, like this video if you liked it. And I want to thank my Patreon supporters as well, especially my friends Will and Jeremy. They are just, like, for lack of a better term, rock stars. And I appreciate their support so much. Like, truly, like, they're actually legit people who have been with me for a very, very long time, and I appreciate that immensely. So thank you to them. And if you're not quite ready to leave YouTube, and you want to watch more videos, I have got one. I have got one for you. It's basically about how to trick your brain into doing hard things. The idea comes from one of the best business books I've read in the last little while, and certainly one of the best books I've read so far this year. And I reveal that book and one of its key lessons in this video right here.
All these people wanna hate, but I'ma make mine. While you sitting there complaining, I'll be training. While you sitting there just waiting, I'm creating. Yeah. Sometimes I think that I'm unstoppable.